Hi, my name's Paul Chatterton. I'm here with Ashley Blood, and this is our video for our DotSpatial project. We chose to do the option for hiking, biking, cross-country skiing trail analyzer. And our project features contain a few things. One is the user can insert DEMs and shapefiles. They can draw polylines. They can see an elevation plot of a selected line and also preview trail analysis that we have set up. There are also just basic map controls and minor features that are available as well. So we're going to talk about our code and also demonstrate the actual interface of our project that we've made.
Alright, so here is our code. We start by setting up our libraries, the ones that we're going to call on throughout our project. The ones that start with system, those are built into Visual Studio, and then the DotSpatial ones we imported, and then we also use the zgraph library to create our plot. So we then come down and we set up our some global variables that we're going to use. These ones here are used for digitizing so that the users can draw in a trail that we can analyze for them. We also set up a name for our DEM layer and our line layer, so we get handles to those so we can call them throughout our code. And then we come and we initialize our form. At the top of our form, we have a number of buttons in a tool strip. The first one pans, then we have zoom out, zoom in, add layer. These are pretty generic, so I won't go too in depth into those. We then have a button, our button add layer. That's specific to adding DEMs, so raster types, and you can actually add any type of raster using that button. The next button is add shapefile, and we use that to add the polylines that constitute our trails. And you can see here for both of those we have a try and catch, and that's to make sure that if you click the button and then you exit out before you select a raster or a shapefile, then it doesn't crash the program. Down here we have a few more buttons in the tool strip, and those are select and info. Those are also pretty straightforward. And then we have our draw button, and that, like we discussed earlier, is used to draw in a trail. Once you get a message box that pops up once you click that button, and then the message box says click on the map to draw polyline, double click to stop drawing, and the code for that is found down here. So your first mouse click will start digitizing, so it sets the boolean to am digitizing to equal true. And then down here, the double mouse click, it will stop digitizing, and then it displays that after you complete the digitizing process. Up here we skipped over one of our menu options, which is the line thickness. You can change the color and the line thickness, and we have some code in here for that. And now Paul will talk about our graphing menu object.
This next set of code has to do with creating our plot and also the analysis for the selected polyline. And so the user will be able to either draw a polyline or insert a polyline into the map, and then using one of the buttons we have, it will begin to run this code. And so what it does is it looks for each feature in this line. We've set up a bunch of variables that will be used further down. And then we've got some for loops, and it'll take each of those features in the line and run through it, and this will calculate the total length for many segments in this line, and it'll put that in an array. It'll also put the elevation in an array as well. And so here it's kind of the important part where we have the plot x and plot y array. That is the x and y coordinate for our plot. And so the y coordinate will take in the elevation, and the length, which are the x values in that plot, will be placed in this array. The very first time that this loop runs, we have I is equal to 0, so it'll only use this code once, and then from then on it'll come down here, because the first time you run this loop, there aren't any previous x or y values before it, so it's a little bit different. At that point, we start calculating some various parameters that we set up that'll determine whether or not a line which represents a hike is easy, medium, or hard. So one of those things is the elevation, and so we'll find the max and the min elevation and find the difference. So if you have to hike really high, then that's a more difficult hike. We also have a loop that'll determine the slope and eventually find the max slope for a line segment, and it'll set that as a variable. We also have a parameter for the length of the trail, so if it's a really, really long trail, then it'll be given a higher value. In this case, 4 is the most difficult trail for length, and 1 is the easiest. Continuing on, you've got elevation change. So this is bringing these variables that we showed up above into here, and we have these if statements. And so again, if you have a really high elevation, then it'll be a more difficult hike. And the same thing with the slopes. We found that slope variable earlier. Now it's bringing it into here, and depending on the percentage of slope, it'll also be given a rating of 1 to 4, with 4 being the most difficult. At that point, we sum each of those parameters up, and so the highest can be a value of 12 and the lowest will be a value of 3, and we just kind of randomly pick some numbers after we did a few tests with some of these hikes. And so if a number is greater than 8, it's considered hard, greater than 4 but less than 8, medium. Anything less than 4 is considered easy. Now that we've got these arrays containing the plot information, as well as these the parameters that determine whether or not the hike is hard, medium, or easy, we can now actually put this into our plot. And so this section right here has to do with the labels, or the text labels that are within our plot, and also within our analysis tab that we'll show when we demonstrate our example. And then we make sure that the graph is cleared before we go ahead and add in our plot X and plot Y, and they're inserted as point paired list. And that'll eventually draw the curve. We've defined the attributes like the color and the symbol type and the width of the curve, and as mentioned, the text information for this plot. And once we're done, we just make sure that the plot is refreshed after we've added everything, and that is the end of our code.
So here is our trail analyzer application. So here's the basic functionality. So first you come and you go to add a layer, and if you remember from our code, this is to add a DEM layer. Let's see if that comes up ever. Okay, here we go. So this is a preloaded raster that we have that contains most of Utah County, but you could have whatever DEM you want. You could put your own data into here. It doesn't load automatically. Alright, and then we add our shapefile. We'll do Big Springs, and this will always pop up and you just hit yes. And then here we can zoom in on our trail. There we go. We can also come to our view line width, and we can select the freaking huge option to make that a lot more visible. And just to show off some of our functionality, here's some of our different options that we have going on. And then here's the main functionality of our program, is this generate elevation plot option. So here we have a nice lovely graph of the change in elevation. We have hiking trail elevation graph as our title, and then we have the X and Y axes, they automatically update. And then here are our trail statistics over in the second tab. So there's a legend and then there's the trail analysis tab. So here we have labels that will automatically update with the total distance, slope, and the change in elevation, and then we have our algorithm that computes the trail difficulty. So this one's a medium one. So let's try a different one here. Let's try Hope to Hobble. And we can come over and zoom to that layer if we want and get that all nice and centered, and then create the graph for this one. And these updated, and now this one is a hard trail. So now let's show what happens when you actually go through and draw your own trail. Let's draw some points here. It's kind of a longer trail, and then generate elevation. So you can see we were here in green, which is low elevation for the first long part, and that's showing up here, and then get into some higher elevations, and that's looking pretty accurate. And that was another hard trail. You can draw another one, stay here, and it'll be pretty easy. Yeah, sure enough. So that is our application, and we hope you enjoyed it.